this myself, but there's a lot of scammers and it's very dangerous out there. Like I said, I almost got caught myself, and I'm really skeptical, and I think I'm pretty savvy on the internet, but now I have somebody out there that knows my name, my address, my phone number, my email, and I have to be careful on that because I finally figured out what they were trying to do. So anyway, like I said, I would like to promote this, or propose this annual garage sale. The packet you have in front of you, the stapled part is what I would like to give to the residents. It has a form to fill out for, participation or requesting for any donations or anything we could help with signage. And then the single sheet is the paper that I would like to give to the attendees that would come for that one day. It has a map of the community, which we could put dots on it if we knew, where people might be. It also has some of the do's and don'ts for the day, and then it also has a little spot there in the middle, since our community is L-shaped, for a place that maybe the clubhouse pub might want to put a garage sale menu for the day, or maybe the pro shop wanted to put a coupon or something for the day to introduce them to our community. If you don't have any questions, I think I'm done.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that Kathy lives in Sand Hill Lane in our community, so when we had our meeting in January at the beginning of the year and this was on the agenda, I took a vote, and we have a very good turnout at our homeowners meeting, and they were in favor of it. So and then Kathy volunteered to go ahead and kind of run with the ball and see where it would go. Of course, I mentioned to the presidents about a month ago or so, 2 months ago rather, to check with their own communities and get some feedback. The paperwork you have in front of you is just the first draft of what it could be. It could be changed from that. There's some communities may not want to participate, and that would be identified. But she's put in a lot of work, and we appreciate her effort. Thank you.
Just a question back there.
Yes, John.
Are those folks implying that the public would be allowed in for this event?
What she's asking for is a committee to review this, and they'll come back with recommendations to the board for approval. So she's just bringing the information forward for this board to assign it to somebody. So that's what we're doing this evening.
Yeah, it could be just restricted to internally, or it could be open to the public. That's to be decided.
Right, that'd be up to the board. Thank you very much. Next on the list is Jason Holland.
I'm Jason Holland. I'm the vice president of Club Patio, and seems like wherever I go, and whether I'm here or sometimes out in the public, people come to want to voice their opinion about things going on out here, what needs to change, what needs to happen, and most of those people, they don't show up in this room. I don't know if they just feel comfortable coming to talk to me. I don't know if they come talk to any of you presidents or whatever. But I think the clear thing that I've heard over the last 5 years, and I think what everybody here's been working for, is a little bit more transparency. But this board tends to have committees that doesn't really allow us to have transparency because there's 2 people or 3 people on it. And I feel as a vice president that if you're going to have a committee, we need to have an equal representation of the community, which means every HOA should have the opportunity to allow one person from their community to be at that meeting. And that meeting should be ran just like this meeting. And I know there's no laws that probably govern those meetings, but we can make our own rules like we do with a lot of things in life. So you have to have a quorum of our community that's meeting for that meeting, whether it's meeting for a management group, a meeting for the annual garage sale thing out here. Whatever we're going to do out here, that we're going to have a committee, the RAC committee, the amended. There should be 14 people on that committee, one person from each HOA. And that person can go back to the president or the vice president and tell them what's going on. So when they come in here, they're not getting some proposal that gets thrown up there And some of y'all have even said you feel like you're getting, sideswiped. You're not getting all the information. You get it right here and you have to make a decision. Well, if we want to have clear transparency, I think we need to have an equal representation, and every HOA should have the opportunity to have somebody on every committee. And those meetings should happen at a time that everybody can attend. And they should just be limited to whatever it is, an hour. And if you don't finish it in the hour, then you make another time to come back at another time for another hour. So you're not inconvenienced with a 4-hour meeting that I hear we have sometimes. There's no reason. I've owned 2 companies, I've ran 4 companies, and I currently run a medical practice. We don't meet for 4 hours every week to figure out how to make money, how to market to our patients, how to stay in compliance, and how to keep the doors open, even through a pandemic, wearing masks, COVID, and everything else. So I think that's something that the board, you presidents, should take a look at, because I think that's a good thing that we should look at, have more transparency. The other thing is they talk about is how we spend money sometimes in getting bids and not getting bids. We had a meeting here, I couldn't find the minutes, but this board said, and I forget the dollar amount, that if anything we were gonna do out here and spend all of our money, if it was gonna be over that price, we had to have 3 bids. So it shouldn't matter if it's landscape, road and drainage, trees getting cut, or whatever it is. If it's over that amount, whatever it is, we need to look back in the minutes. We need to have 3 proposals of what it costs to do it. Whether you take the highest bid or the lowest bid, at least you have 3 proposals, and I don't have to hear people complaining about we're not getting 3 bids. There was a meeting, there was minutes, and all the presidents agreed on the motion that if it was over a certain amount of money, we were going to get 3 bids. And the other thing I wanted to bring that's kind of bothered me, and it hasn't come up recently, is we were talking about spending $8,000 on a parking space area for the people that park in the middle of our roads with their lawn equipment and the contractors that come and work on our homes all day long. But we want to put an $8,000 parking space possibly over by the bathrooms between 7 and 8, because the grass gets worn out there and it's all rutted out or whatever. Well, I'm just going to go on the record that I don't think that's a good expense of our money of $8,000. I think there's a lot of things they can do to go to the bathroom. They don't need to pull over there. We should have a curb and some grass. They park in the middle of the streets all day long in our community. And you drive through this community and there's signs and all kinds of things that need repair. Painted, cracked stop signs at the bases. I mean, all over the place. Things falling off, the lightning shelter out there on the one hole needs to be pressure washed and painted. There's a lot of better use of $8,000 than putting a parking pad in so that the people that come cut our grasses can park and not tear it up over there. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you. Next slide, please, Maris. Landscape Committee, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Bob. This month, we are coming out of the winter mode for landscaping, and where things are done every 2 weeks along with special projects. We're now going into the summer mode where we'll be back every week doing the usual maintenance programs, the lawns and everything else that you see them do. It's going to start very quickly. It's going to start next week. So I want to just update you on that. Other than that, I don't have anything new that I want to present, other than I want to talk about the 2023 budget that's coming up. So that when Landscape presents their budget committee recommendation, I want you to understand that we've got some things that we're adding to it that are not currently part of the budget. We are right now, as a landscape committee, we're in a maintenance mode. We do not do new planting areas. We have not done anything to the median strip to dress it up. All we're doing now is just to keep what we have alive and trimmed and keep it cut and go for that. 2023, we have a new line item which I'm going to recommend, which is we're going to redo the front sign. And we are already working on quotes to get that done so that it will be in the recommendation, that will be in our recommendation to present to you for approval. We're not going to do it until sometime towards the end of 2023 for obvious reasons. We want to wait till the road project is done and this daily dosing of dirt and dust goes on the sign. We want that behind us.
but in 2023, we're going to have it pressure washed, we're gonna have it painted completely. So I wanted you to know that's gonna be a new line item in the budget, which is gonna take it up a little bit. The other thing is this, and we've talked about it several times in the past, especially with the roads coming up, is we have 2,900 feet of fence along Dundee Road. And Mark and I have walked all 2,900 feet of it and looked at every aspect of it. And we have a challenge in front of us that I want to present to you tonight to know that we're going to look for your recommendations as president as to how we can do this. I don't know, we could have a project that could run chain link fence installed, $35 a foot. That's $90,000. Just for instance, that you know that those could be kind of the kind of numbers we're looking at. And that's just replacing a chain link fence. There's no upgrade, there's not doing anything other than what we have there. Just think about this, I'm not asking for recommendations. But in that walking, Mark and I found out that we have one major issue, which is that fence is infested with vegetation. And for us to ask a fence company to find out what it's going to take to fix that fence, we have to get rid of that vegetation. Otherwise, they won't be able to give us an accurate figure of what we're looking at. We'd be wasting our time going out and getting bids unless we give them something consistent to look at and to evaluate to come back with. So the first thing we're going to do for 2023 is to give you an estimate as to what it takes to get the vegetation off of that fence. And we don't know where this is going to go yet. I have companies looking at it. They're going to give me bids as to how much it's going to cost, what are we going to do to get it out there, what are their recommendations that they can help us with to define how much we can afford to put into the fence program. There are a lot of options, but one option could be we take all the vegetation off, leave the good fence up there, cut it down where it's bad, weave in a new piece of fence, and go on from there. And that might prove to be the best way to do it, and it'll look just like it does right now, where you don't have plantings. It's going to run the entire 2,900 feet of just plain green chain link fence. So that's something we're going to be looking at. And this is going to be a several-year project, because if I do this in 23, that means 24 might be the first year before we're ever able to address it. It's down the road, it's a long-term project. We on the landscape committee have never been involved with this. This has just been part of the community since the day that the area was being developed. So now somebody's got to pay for it. We're going to put it in somebody's budget. We'll put it in the landscape budget and see what you want to do with it. But I'm going to be looking to you for some advice as to what you might like to see out front. If you're looking for something like Lake Ashton, you have a good idea of where that might look like. Do we want to do that here? Probably not. We want to do it economical. We want something that looks good for the community, that reflects the history, the greatness of this community, but yet we want to do it within the budgets that you as presidents are willing to support, because we're going to need your advice on that. So I just wanted to make you aware of, when you see the landscape budget coming up, probably I'm going to be looking for a June presentation on it so that I can do that. I'm going to have it ready. So I just wanted you to be aware of what's going on. So you know we have a lot to address. Yes, sir.
Fred, the landscape committee.
Hey, excuse me, John. Can I can't hear you from there. So Bob's going to translate for me. Or you use the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. As I'm just kind of following up on one of our residents' request about the landscape committee. Are your meetings published as to when they meet, and are they open to anybody that wants to attend?
Well, we have a 5-member committee, and I will publish it when we're gonna be meeting to discuss budget. I'm gonna make a first recommendation, and then I'll be bringing the quotes that we had to the committee to talk about what's the best way to address it. And the good news is Mark's on the committee with us and is giving us some excellent guidance, because this is a complicated program. And it's something that you're gonna look at, it's a reflection on the community, and you're more than welcome to be a part of that. It's open.
Thanks, Fred. Next slide.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Traffic control, Mr. Reese.
Good evening. Are we good? Okay, good. Who in here would have posted on Facebook about the school bus loading, unloading, or who all saw that? Okay. I've spoken to our staff. It's my understanding, and I wasn't there, so is the bus on the boulevard or is it on Greenfield when it's loading? Can somebody help me out on that?
On the boulevard.
What I read, it was on Greenfield. If it's not on.
Okay. Okay. Bear in mind, staff and myself, we want nothing at all to happen to any of our kids that are trying to load on a bus that time of morning. I've asked staff to address that. If I remember, I printed out the Facebook post about it. That I think is now on the bulletin board in the gatehouse. We can't stop the residents if they're up that early coming back from a late night party or whatever, but we certainly can hold the traffic coming in the non-resident lane, even if you have decals. So if you're up early and you already run to Chick-fil-A for breakfast and you're coming in when that bus is there, chances are you won't be allowed to go through the non-resident lane. So if you don't have a clicker, you'll sit there for a little bit. Nothing happened. I think by Florida law, kind of a real fine point there, since the boulevard is technically a divided highway with a median in the middle, you technically would not have to stop if you're on the other side of the road. Technical and what's going to happen at the gate, we don't want to be that close with it. So we've asked staff to address that and try to hold that lane until the bus moves on its way. But thank you for bringing that up. As far as anything else, traffic, I've been in touch with, but I would solicit anybody out there who has friends, relatives, good experiences with gate companies that might be interested in submitting a bid to us to look at doing the proximity reader set up for the resident lane. This is something I've talked about since I took this over in 17. The proximity reader means you get rid of the clickers, which means that everybody that has a clicker from 40 years ago that uses the resident lane, they would not be able to do that. It would entail basically like an RFID code stuck to the windshield or a headlight or something on the vehicle that would then activate the arm to go up. So I've got a company that I was in discussions with. I'm waiting to get some numbers from them. But if anybody else has lived in a different community and you may have had that type of setup, let me know who the company is. I will certainly reach out to them. Budget probably June, July, like Fred was saying. So we've got a little bit of time, but I'd like to start that legwork. Presidents?
Question, when would be the plan to implement something like that?
As soon as the 14 presidents around the table says, approved for X number of dollars. And implementation would be interesting. I've thought about that. A lot of our people have the gate clickers they've spent $35 or $40 for. Those would go by the wayside. The little stickers that would activate the arm, they're not going to be that much, but I'm sure that's something that in our bid we will get X number of those, and we would probably have to go almost like association by association and get those distributed to the people who have registered vehicles with the gatehouse. Okay? So the implementation part is going to be interesting if and when we ever get there. But like Jason has alluded to, we live in a great community. What we're seeing take place out here, what we're seeing taking place everywhere else has been very positive. To me, another positive step would be to get to that RFID transponder type of access. So we would not be getting rid of the gatehouse staff. They would still be there, but people that have been reluctant to do transmitters, but they have the decal and they want to go through the non-resident, with that RFID, they're going to be basically required to go through the resident lane. Okay? That's all I've got. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Road and Drainage, Mr. Bill Shira, please. Come on down.
Thank you. I'm Bill Shira, a member of the Road and Drainage Committee. Recently, here's a little synopsis on our recent activity. We had repairs in the Palmacia area to drainage. We had drainage repairs in the Plantation area. The new pump system was tested well recently. We had better than a 2-inch rain that came pretty quick, handled all that pretty well. It looks like we've got the high water mark and the low water mark to trigger that set well. And the last thing I've got for us, the tractor that we bought for the mechanical portable pumping system. This is a minor item, it's not a big deal, but it needs to be done. The ignition system on that is in need of a rebuild. I can't put a number on it. We need a mechanic to work on it. It'll be a wiring harness, and I wouldn't think it would end up costing us more than $400.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, something like that. And so that's all I have. If anyone has any drainage needs, catch either Mark, I, or Rick afterwards, and we'll get after it for you.
Thank you, sir. Next slide, please. The Treasurer's Advisory Committee, Mr. Scott Shire.
Thank you, Bob. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. I wanted to be in front. Okay, board, this is emailed to you before our meetings and every month from the CAM. This is a balance sheet. And a couple of key things to point out when you see your operating cash amount. That is working capital. That's what we're bringing in every quarter from the HOAs and what is being spent against the budget for the year. So you'll see that number go up and down. It's not a savings account, it's our working capital. And then also on the balance sheet page, you have the reserve cash that's put in long-term savings instruments, and then some other items that balance out to where our assets sit. If you'll go to the next slide, please. On this slide, I just want to point out a couple of things on the liabilities. We've got our reserve accounts are in the middle here, and they go down as general reserves, road reserves, stormwater, reserve interest, front gate, and then traffic control. General reserves is the only reserve account along with reserve interest. Those two, those are accounts that are not tied to future spending, roads, drainage, and things of that nature. So they act as our safety net, and this year, thanks to last year's board that voted in an increase that's going to general reserves, we are adding about $34,000 a quarter to the general reserve fund. We're going to see this get up over $200,000 by the end of the year. assuming that we do not have anything come up of an emergency nature that requires we dip into it. So that's good news. Good job by that board getting that in and getting us where we need to be with some reserve cash for our community. You also will see with the 34-page financials come from the CAM, the first page of that or the first 2 pages is your balance sheet. The next 3 pages is a summary of what's being spent within the budget. After that, you get 30 pages plus of copies of checks and balances and things of that nature. We do a summary report of those expenses. Next slide, please. And that report, there, back. It disappeared. It's clear. Well, there we go, we're done. It's not there. Okay, it's not there. So this report, it'll be emailed out to you after this meeting. We normally do it quarterly. It's now being done for each of these meetings. And the long and short of it is, it's a very small sample size. It's 2 months out of our year. And to date, we're under budget. I'll just say that much. And in fact, Bill, your $400, you definitely have it. You're so far under budget in road and drainage that I think you padded the number, but okay. So, but we're doing fine. I just want you to know that I and the TAC committee are watching spending to be sure we stay within our budget. That's the key thing. Just know that. All right, next slide. Board, in 2022, by the end of this year, you have a responsibility to act on the golf club lease, which has an option to purchase the property. This slide, reading it down, it says the golf club lease agreement includes the provision below that gives the CCA an option to purchase the property listed below. And this option expires on December 31st of 2022, the end of this year. This board will have to vote yes or no to exercise that option. The language from the lease is in the middle. It says, for the first 5 years of the lease, tenant shall have the option to purchase the property at a price agreed by both tenant and landlord. That agreed price shall not exceed $2.5 million. Landlord shall provide financing for the entire amount of the agreed price with a first purchase money mortgage with interest accruing at 3% a year on the unpaid principal, payable in monthly installments for 30 years. Landlord will pay dock stamps. Tenant will pay everything else at closing. And below is a list of the property, which includes the golf course, clubhouse, maintenance building, car barn, storage, wellness center, driving range, parking areas, pool, tennis courts, restrooms, water elements, cart paths, and related landscaping. Okay. Before I go to the next slide, yes, John Tayson.
Do you know, we have the chairman of the board here. Perhaps the question would be directed.
Hold on, John, wait a second,
please. He said he's not chairman of the board. That's how I addressed him. My question is, do we know of, and can we explain any, if there are any restrictions on the use of that property that we have the opportunity to buy by the end of the year?
Asking to repeat that.
Well, what I mean by that is if someone were to buy the amenity package, it's all listed up there, the golf course, et cetera, are there any restrictions that are held by the county or anybody else for that matter on what that property could be used for other than a golf course?
It would be my opinion that the golf course, which is located within the unincorporated jurisdiction of the Board of County Commissioners, Polk County, there, any zoning restrictions that they have, it would be subject to.
Well, do you know of any such as there being a restriction that it could not be zoned for residential, for instance?
Any current restriction could possibly be changed. So it would, I don't have a concrete answer as to what the current restrictions are, but even if there was a restriction, my understanding of zoning law is it could be changed with the agreement of the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay. So, go to the next slide. The purpose of presenting this tonight is to get this on the table for this board. From a timing perspective, certainly with budgets affected this year possibly with closing costs, in the future with financing, debt servicing, we have budgets to get put together. So this board's going to need to vote on this probably, ideally by middle of summer. We certainly have till the end of the year to exercise the option. The TAC committee will oversee providing the board with details and information on exercising the purchase option. And some considerations up for that are timing, when the board should vote, and the budgets, identifying closing costs, which would be payable at closing and not financed with the owners, that would have to come out of a current budget. Debt servicing effect on future budgets and the assessments to our homeowners. Property valuation, and tied into that, John, would be land use. Does it remain a golf course? Then the ongoing, and whether the lease, we'd have to rework the lease for the long range too, as pertains to the club operator. Mike Howell is part of the TAC committee, and I spoke with him today. He had some things that he wanted to add to this. Mike, you want to come up and chat with us for a bit?
I don't want to deal with the continuing operation of our amenities. I'm only up here to address a single issue. The option to purchase this land expires, as Scott said, at the end of December. After that, the property, if it was sold, would be sold at market value. As of today, the market value of that land, regardless of its land use designation or its current zoning, is between $35,000 and $40,000. At the price that the Wood family is offering, it's about, if the $2.5 million is the price, it's a little over $17,000 an acre. I've lived here now in Cypresswood for 20 years. And I'm a retired realtor that sold land up and down 27 for 20 years. So when you don't let anybody tell you otherwise, the value of that golf course land, and I asked Bob Shea today, and he thinks we're talking about 140 acres of land probably in totality. So that property, the current land use and current zoning of that is not relevant. And the property appraisers, just market value is irrelevant. And an appraisal of that property by any appraisal firm is irrelevant. When you're talking about selling land that's for developmental purposes, appraisals don't matter, just market value doesn't matter. And if there's enough property there for it to be developed at all for residential housing, whatever land use or zoning is currently in effect that would prevent it, believe me, it can be easily changed. And I'm gonna just simply say to the board, and I felt this way in 2017. I felt like at the time that we should have bought it first and then made a decision as how we were going to improve the facilities. That wasn't what happened. The board voted 12-2 to execute this lease. I'm not against the lease. There's powerful and strong arguments to be made to continue the lease. It's the greatest deal since popcorn. It's $1 a year. All we really have to do is maintain it and improve it somewhat as we see fit. However, once that property is sold to anybody, then while the sale, everything's subject to this lease that goes on out for the balance of the term. I think it's 2067. But in thinking long term, if I was a younger man, I'm coming on 82 next month, if I was a much younger man and I lived in Cypresswood and loved it as much as I love this community, I would want us to own it. And my major thinking about that is if at any point something happens to golfing, if we reach a point in thinking about maintenance and improvements and it becomes in our mind not feasible, then we don't have an option unless we own it. If we own the property, and at some point, if it's not going to be a golf course, or if it's not going to be an 18-hole golf course, if we own it, then we have some options then to develop it for other recreational uses for the community at large. My concern here is not just what might think. I look at our whole community, there's 1,061 residents here. So my thinking long term, this is probably the most serious issue the board faces. And it's budget time coming up. Fred's already said he wants more money, and we know that we need to build our general reserve to a higher amount. We know that we're sitting on $200,000 of improvements needed for the pool. There's a lot of money over the next, not necessarily next year, but over the next 3, 4, 5 years that we're looking at that we're gonna have to spend just to maintain what we have. But sitting right on top of that is this option. So I'm just asking you to realize the seriousness of it, because if you pass it up, and there's on page 12, I don't know, did you hand this out, all the presidents hand this?
Yes.
This is this was done by Kevin. He's sitting back here. He fleshed out the bullet points of the lease, and that you have that. Now on page 12, I numbered all the pages, not the front page, but after that. If you turn back to this section here, the page that says this, it says actions to be taken at the 5-year mark of the lease. If you look at that page, I made a couple of notes. There's one sentence there that says negotiate a right of first refusal on the purchase of the property. And I made a note beside another sentence that says negotiate a process for independently valuing the golf club and establishing a price certain. And my only response to that is that none of those things matter. I know there's some people sitting in the room that makes you go this to your forehead, but the land is worth what the land is worth. And it has tremendous developmental potential for residential housing. So don't get sidetracked. So that's there, and anything that I could do to help you in talking about any of this, I'll be glad to do it. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Mike. So the question before the board, Martha, yes, please.
This is a big decision, and I see us right now with a 2-step process. Number one, we probably should do a straw poll to see if the board even wants to pursue this. And if the answer is no, then we just stop. If the answer is yes, then I'll make a motion so we have it in the record that we've agreed to go forward. Okay.
All right, Martha is asking for a straw poll. Mark?
I'd just like to make a comment. I just ran the amortization schedule for $2.5 million at 3% over 30 years. The monthly payment would be about $11,300. That's what So that's what we'd be having to add to our budget, if that's what we decided to go ahead and do.
And I ran that this afternoon, it comes out to, roughly $130 a year per unit
Okay. as
an addition.
So the assessment effect, the net assessment effect would be that we would need $130 per
Increase.
per resident.
Not
a
counting
year.
taxes, fees, insurance, that's just straight loan.
We have a question, yes, please.
I know she asked about, asking to see if you guys take a vote, but I would like to make sure that other members have a chance to talk to their HOA presidents before it gets turned out, because, it's gonna be.
And that's part of the reason that this topic came up in this meeting. It gives us enough time through the year for the presidents to be able to get with the residents as they wish to discuss the matter. So with that said, sir?
The presidents need to decide how they want the committee to act. They want them to proceed with presenting options, so that gives time for your members to talk to you, or do you want to nix it? Do you want to, somebody from this group of 14 needs to make a decision. Yes, Mark?
I make a motion that we go ahead and examine the options.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we'll...
Thank you from TAC. You've given us the direction that we need. Next slide.
Sir, how's that going to proceed? If we say we're going to examine the options, and do we bring it up in July or next May when the next meeting is?
We will.
We have to set up a
Our
procedure that we're going to follow. We just can't say, let's examine the options and never do anything about it. There's a lot of people here tonight that would like to know some of the options.
Then you got people that's getting ready to leave here for about 6 months.
Yeah. And Jason, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably like to make a recommendation that the TAC committee maybe conduct some workshops, maybe on like a weekend or something, when there can be a greater audience here than what there is here tonight. I think there needs to be a lot more visibility around this decision.
Okay. That was the plan, that we were going to have TAC gather and decide, put together a super task force, if you will, and that would include the community. We can do that as a workshop. We talked about April as one of the possible dates of doing that. It needs to be done sooner than later. I saw a hand in the audience. Did I? No? Okay. So we will do that. TAC we'll make that published in public, so to speak. So everybody can join and be part of it. Okay. Anyone else?
Well, if I may, being part of that committee, maybe we can get together soon, make a decision on a date, get that out to the presidents, so the presidents can notify as many residents as possible, so that people may know how to do that.
I'm thinking first week of April, yes.
We're going to have presentations similar to Mike's, although he didn't really say a dollar and cents conclusion in his presentation. But for people to come to a TAC meeting, by the way, I'm a member of TAC also. I'm also a longtime member of the Amenity Committee, also a longtime member of the Traffic Control Committee, and any other committee that you can think of. Only landscaping, but they don't have meetings. At any rate, we've got to have statistics available, real facts, not just hypotheticals. We've got to have real facts available for people who come to the TAC meeting, or what, if you're not going to call it a TAC meeting, whatever you're going to call it, because I've had a lot of interest expressed to myself since I've been president for just a short time, but a lot of people have said, we've got this number 20 in the lease coming up, and what are we going to do about it? Because certainly, John, you're a good businessman, and it's an unbelievable, I think, offer that you made us back in 2017, where you said we could buy it for up to 2.5 million. But after that, knowing you are a good businessman, believing it at least, I would say that there's gonna be a big change after December 31st if we don't take action before. And I'm not sure that's the best action to take, but we certainly wanna have a lot of representation, even much greater than we have here today, to find out how people feel. And by the way, you're not necessarily gonna wind up $130 more for each person, because if what we hear is true, that it could be residential, and let's say save a 9-hole golf course for the people who want to play, you could play 2 9-holes and you'll have your 18 in. But if you sold the rest of it at the kind of market price Mike was alluding to, but didn't actually give us the number, I didn't hear it. You could have all of your loans that you've made to upgrade this community, to make it as nice as it is now, new greens, new irrigation system, revamp the whole clubhouse, and do a lot of other things, and probably be able to do the tennis courts and the swimming pool, and still not have a debt to pay, have it free and clear. So there's a lot of things that have to be considered here, and a lot of information that has to be given, Scott.
We're aware. That's why we'll be meeting. Next slide, please. As TAC, I will be presenting to you the club operators business in 2021. This would be Bob Shade's company. This is a profit and loss snapshot broken out by quarter for 2021 with the total at the last column. The core products of the club operator includes golf at the top. Next down is the pub and the venue, followed by wellness, pool, and tennis. And then the summary at the bottom totals the entirety of the year. The total for the year in 2021 in revenue was $1.329 million. Expenses, $1.34. The LLC had an $11,000 loss. That was before income tax, depreciation, and amortization. And this report is unaudited, audited only in that it was not back from your accountants. This was off of your year-end reporting that went to your accountants. Okay. So that is the LLC's year in 2021. This is TAC produced, yes. Yes. Using your data.
You have full access.
Yeah. I have access to the LLC's data. This is straight from that data, collected for the year. The reason to present this is because is there a slide for that? Okay, next slide. Because we have a motion to waive the golf course assessment obligation for the 150 units in 2021. That's presented to you from the TAC committee and from the amenities committee from RAC. That is per the terms of our agreement, CCA, with our club operator. So you have to be profitability to pay. Yeah. So therefore, there needs to be a motion to waive it. Do we have a motion?
Explain what you're trying to do, Scott.
The LLC, the club operator, has to be profitable in the year in order to be able to be assessed for his 150 units. And so in 2021, he had an $11,000 loss. And as such, as a provision of our agreement, he does not pay that assessment on the 150 units or any portion thereof. There have been years he has paid it and it's been prorated.
We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
You made the motion, Mark?
Yes, I did.
I'll second.
Any questions on the motion?
Any questions on the motion? This is a board matter, so it's not a resident thing at this point, it's a board matter. So does any president have any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. 2. Okay. Do we need to do, let's do a roll call so we have it for the record.
Club patio. Club patio.
Opposed? No. Nope.
Cypress Pond.
Yes.
Eagle Pond condos.
Yes.
Enclave.
Yes.
Fairway patio.
Yes.
Garden patio.
Yes.
Golf villas.
Yes.
Greenfield Village.
Steve, are you still there? Steve, can you hear? He's not there.
I'm here, Dave, I'm here.
Okay. Did you hear the motion and the second? Are you able to follow along?
I heard a little of it, can you give me a summary?
Well, so we'll move on. See, no, I'll catch you up later. It's okay. Hold on.
Meadows.
No.
Oak Grove.
No.
Palmacia.
Yes.
Plantations.
Yes.
Sand Hill Lane.
Yes.
Villas of Green, not here. Okay, we got 8 to 4.
8 to 4, the motion passes. Thank you.
I believe I'm done.
Next slide, please.
Scott,
Yes.
can we get a copy? I wanted a copy of that profit and loss.
Yeah,
Yes.
you'll get it tomorrow with the.
Oh, tomorrow, okay, thank you.
Okay. Amenities Committee, is Mark starting with the pool?
Yes, after I introduce him.
Sorry.
I'd like to say the Amenities Committee was created in 2017. I've been the chair since then. We have had anywhere from 9 to 14 members. We have met anywhere from weekly to monthly now. From the beginning, we have attempted to have people from different HOAs and have all through that time. On 2 occasions, I have told people who wanted to join the committee that we did not have a seat, and that was because we already had 2 people from their HOA sitting on the committee, and I wanted to have a slot for another HOA. We have always been open. Anybody can come. Some people have, some haven't joined, as Linda has. The committee's membership has varied a little, but we continue to be around the 9 to 11 mark, and people come as best they can, and we still have, I think, more than half of the HOAs represented, although I'd have to check that. Tonight, we have 2 important subcommittee reports before I give you numbers, and Bill Shira is going to be the first report from the subcommittee about reviewing the lease.
Thank you, Martha. We have a subcommittee that is reviewing the lease arrangements with the amenities operator. Bob Shade's company was put in place at the beginning of this operation because Bob had been running this operation for 3 years on his own and with John for probably 6 or 7 years prior to that. Certainly no one had more knowledge of what needs to be done for all the amenities, operating the golf course, running the venue, running the pub, the pool, tennis, and the exercise facility. The original agreement that we had was that we would review, we would let Bob know at the end of this month whether he would continue beginning next January in 2023. As we began to dug into this, and by the way, the committee, the review committee is Rick Reese and Kevin Seward and myself, and we're doing the initial review. And the review is we're building a request for proposal that will go out to other companies. In that request for proposal, we are listing all the things that need to be done in here, and Kevin has put the initial draft of that together. It's 3 typed pages. That's without detail in it. So it's going to be a pretty meaty document. That's a normal thing to do when you're looking to outsource a club operator and not to have the club operator work as a direct employee for the board. Here, we do not want that kind of a structure. The reason is that our business, the Cypresswood Community Association, operates as a tax-free organization. If we get in the business of operating a cash register, we will lose that exemption, and the penalties are pretty severe for that, to the level of 30% increase in what our costs are. So we want to maintain that, and that structure is common. The city of Winter Haven works that way with regard to Willowbrook. So at this point, we have put together the basis of what we're going to put out. That request for proposal will go to the amenities committee for a complete review. That'll be a workshop thing because that's going to be very detailed. We've identified a number of companies that we will ask to quote, and he's one of them. And then from that, the board will make a selection on what they're going to do. Now, as we sit and look at it today versus what we did when we initially took this, we realize that the timing schedule of this is not very good. To make a decision in March to identify the new operator that would start the following January, while that's plenty of lead time, what it isn't is it's not a wise thing to do because next January is right in the throes of the high season, which is where the majority of the revenue comes from with regard to the operation of amenities, and that's from the golf course. The right thing to do is to do it at the end of the season. And so what we're initially proposing, and I want to put this to the board, and board, I want you to identify to us how you want to change this. But we want to change those trigger dates that we have in our agreement with Bob. We want to change the March 31st date, and we want the notice to him that we're going to either make a change or continue. We want that to be the end of August. And we want the effective date of that change to be the 1st of May. Now, does anybody have any idea how we go about making that change? John?
I would say we just make a motion to accept what you just said.
All right, and
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second, so we can have it on the floor.
okay, so Mr. Wood has made a motion, Mrs. Palmer has seconded that motion, and that is for the board to ratify these changes. And John, you do, and the fact that John makes that motion, he is the holder of the lease. He's the holder of the lease, so there's validity in him making that statement. Bob, and you're in agreement with this, and Bob's in agreement with this, so this has some merit. So is there any discussion we need to have?
Board member Mark?
And when you said August, say that one more time.
It will be changed from March 31st to August 31st with a changeover date of April 30th, or from December 31st to April 30th.
Okay.
Of 2023.
And just to clarify, this is an extension of the assignment of the lease. There's no management agreement. The entire lease was assigned to Cypresswood Golf and Country Club LLC. So that's what we're doing. We're assigning the lease. We're just pushing the assignment of the lease forward till the end of April. Yes, Mr. Townsend.
Based on, once again, the interest that we see here, I think that we have to have a better representation for 3,000 people with 3 people representing them. And I would suggest that that motion would carry an encouragement of having at least one representative for each one of our HOAs be a part of this committee doing the evaluation.
The committee, the 3-person committee, is not making any decisions. The 3-person committee is only putting the facts on paper and bringing the requested proposals in to be processed through the amenities committee and finalized by the board. So John, there really isn't a need to get a lot of people involved at that level.
Can I say something?
Bo had her hand up first.
So, again, I do appreciate what everybody does. There's no questions for any of us, or no time for us to talk to any of our HOA presidents until decisions are made, so.
No, this doesn't change really anything. This is a change in some dates.
Correct, but those are big things, because if it goes back to the company, go back to the community, and if we want to take over, I don't know, the amenities or whatever, that could be generating money at that time too. So I'm just saying, everything's made without us having any discussion, in reference to changing the dates.
Yes, Jason.
This is exactly what I was talking about. Bill's up there asking for the board, the 14 presidents, to make a decision on something that they had no idea was coming up tonight. None of these people at this table, maybe 1 or 2, knew that this was coming up tonight to extend a date on a contract.
It's not a contract. It's the lease itself.
The word contract.
I just clarified his words.
The agreement we have with Bob Shade and his company.
Yeah, and
Bob says there is no agreement. It's the lease itself.
It's the lease.
We are the tenant. We, the HOAs, are the tenant, not Bob. I've read the lease. I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
Okay? Bob's LLC is not the tenant.
The lease has been assigned to the LLC
Okay, well,
in its
how come
entirety.
the assignment isn't in the lease copy?
It is in the lease.
There's an assignment.
7.1, I believe, is the number in the lease.
I must be missing that page.
Yeah, it's just one paragraph.
Again, we're trying to make a decision, and how many of you all knew at the table that this was coming up tonight, you were gonna be asked?
No idea. We're
Extend
still
the
hearing
date.
this as well.
That's all I'm asking. You want transparency, you wanna know why people get upset. There is no transparency. You're up here wanting 14 people to make a decision, that if they have time to think about it, go back, talk to their community, their decision might be different.
At this point, Bob, I'm gonna give you this month to month.
Nothing to do with me.
That would be the motion I'd make, because this is a month-to-month decision.
It makes no sense to be moving a date.
The amenities committee has been talking about this.
Yeah, this is just something that we work on in the amenities committee, and Jason, you've attended some of those meetings,
No, I
so.
can't go to the amenities meetings, they're in the middle of the day, and I work in Orlando. Okay?
So we're going to continue to do what we're doing, whether dates are changed or not. It isn't going to impact what we're going to do, and I don't think that it would impact the timing. If the board wants to do anything about extending the end of the assignment or not, that's certainly the board's decision. There is a motion on the floor.
Discussion. Any other board member want to discuss this? Passed.
I think that the extension is a good idea. I think we brought this up at the amenities meeting, and it was, we realized we're running out of time, just like the purchase concern that we have about buying the amenities for the CCA. There's a lot of concern about that, and I think that maybe what we should do is just say, let's extend the time that the committee, I still think the committee should be enlarged, but extend the time to, let's say, August 31st, make a firm date, that the committee would resolve itself to come up with some kind of recommendations. And at that point, we haven't come to a recommendation.
You're talking about the subcommittee, not the committee.
The subcommittee, the 3-people subcommittee, and I think that should be enlarged, but give them time, and if they don't have a recommendation at that point, then we would evaluate whether or not we need to push forward from December 31st to March or April or May 1st. I think May 1st was mentioned a few minutes ago. We would have, what, 3 months, 4 months to consider whether we need to move that forward. I don't think we have to make all of the decisions right now, tonight. Let's extend the time. The 3-person committee has to work on it, and then if it's needed, but we don't even know if it's going to be needed. If it's needed in August, when the recommendation is made, or the recommendation may be we can't find anybody but Bob. That may be the recommendation. But let's wait till then and then make a decision if we're going to forward it.
First thing, and John, that's...
Mr. Tyler, there's a motion on the floor.
Yes.
And I'm not yielding on my motion. Let's have an up or down vote on the motion, then we can consider other, if that fails, we can consider.
Okay, so the motion is to extend the notification date to August 31st with a trigger of execution to April 30th of next year.
About a second.
We have a second. We're going to do a roll call on this one as well. Mr. Secretary?
Club patio,
I agree.
Cypress Pond,
Yes.
Eagle Pond,
Yes.
Enclave,
Yes.
Fairway patio,
Yes.
Garden patio.
Yes.
What was it? Yes. Golf villas,
Yes.
Greenfield Village. Steve?
Steve, did you hear any of that?
Come back to him.
Yeah, we'll come back to next meeting.
Meadows?
No.
No. After all that long discussion. Oak Grove,
No.
Palmacia,
Yes.
Plantations,
Yes.
Sand Hill Lane.
Yes.
Okay. 10 to 2.
And the motion passes 10-2.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We'll continue to gather information. We are only the search committee. We are not a decision-making committee. It's our job to compile all this information, make it easy for everybody to review.
We are still on amenities committee issues. That was report from subcommittee number 1. Subcommittee number 2 is about the pool. And I have 2 things to report. One of them, not a surprise, but not happy news. Mark, would you please talk about the state of the inspector? Not so much our pool, but the inspector.
Well, I had a gentleman come out in Classic Marseille from Orlando, and they're really experienced commercial pool repair and refurbishing company. They've done Legoland's pools, for instance. I probably talked to or sent emails to 10 or more different pool companies. The majority of them are not interested in doing a pool. They just do residential. Some said maybe we'll take a look at it. But I wanted to get somebody over here that really knew what they were doing. We do not. They took a look at the pool today, as a matter of fact, and their comments were as follows. Those ladders are not in compliance anymore. That tile is not in compliance anymore. Those heads in the floor are not in compliance anymore. The markings on the side of the pool are not in compliance anymore. Does this pool pool get inspected? And I said, yes, it does. It gets inspected every 2 months. We have a gentleman that comes out and looks at it, and he said, well, you've been very fortunate that we've been able to keep it operational. We have sections of the floor in the pool, the Marsite, that is lifted off, large sections of the pool. He was quite surprised. So I asked him to give us a very fast number on what it would cost to redo the pool. Now there's a tile beam around the pool, around the top of the pool, and then re-marsiting the pool itself, replacing the ladders, replacing all the markings that are supposed to be there, replacing the recirculation heads that are located in the bottom of the pool, and these are plastic heads that stick up a little bit. He said that's not in compliance, it's supposed to be flush with the floor. And we got a price of about $106,000. That's plus or minus depending on when they're gonna do it, when they would do it. If they would do it in the dry season like now, there's a good chance they would not have to put in separate dewatering equipment because you can, in fact, even a concrete pool, you can make it float. So if there's heavy groundwater, like during the rainy season, then they would have to put in what's called a well point system to dewater all around it to make sure that the pool would not want to, when they empty it out and start working on it, would not want to come up out of the ground. So if they do it during the dry season, we're probably at $106,000. There's a little bit more work that has to be done in the pump house. We didn't go over that in great detail. That would probably be another $5,000 to $10,000. And then if they were doing it during the rainy season, you could probably add another $20,000 on top of that because of the well point equipment. And someone had brought up the idea, well, he was surprised to see a 10-foot pool in the community. He said, you don't see pools that are 10 feet deep in residential communities anymore, and there's no diving boards or anything here. And I said, well, many years ago there were. And he said, so I asked him for a number on what it would take if we were to take from the 5-foot elevation in the pool depth and make that uniform across the deep end of the pool. That would add, are you ready for this? $75,000 on top. So I think we probably could live with a 10-foot deep pool. But this pool is past due, way past due on being resurfaced, okay? And we're very fortunate that we've been getting by the way we have. It's been marked on the reports, the inspection reports by the health department for the, 4 or 5 years now? So at some point here in the near future, we're gonna have to address this somehow. Now, if they shut the pool down, and that's a possibility, the health department can do that. They could come out here and say, look, this is no longer in compliance, and they can shut the pool down, then you're not gonna wanna do it during the rainy season and spend the other extra money, so that means you put you into the next dry season, which of course, we have a rainy season that basically corresponds with hurricane season from June through November, and then you gotta wait for it to dry out, which would make you into April of next year, okay? And that's what would happen if they shut it down. So I just want everyone to be aware of it. This is a situation that's gonna need to be addressed. And it's an amenity now that is a community amenity. It's no longer a private pool member only. It's available to everyone in the community, and you can see how much use it gets. It gets quite a bit of use now. So this is information for the presidents to consider. And finding additional commercial pool contractors, getting out here, meeting with them, going over the details and everything else is time consuming. As far as committees are concerned, there's not a committee that I haven't been on over the years. I've lived out here 30 plus years. And I gotta say, for instance, this past year, they needed a nominating committee for the board members, for the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, okay? They asked who would volunteer to be on the committee. I was a committee of one. One person volunteered to be on that committee, me. That means I had to call people, talk to them, ask the ones that are already on the board if they wanted to be on the board again. Not one other person raised their hand. And there's not a committee I haven't been on. I've seen this again and again and again. You try to get 14 people on a committee, get a meeting, solicit bids. I don't think you folks have any idea how much time it takes to do that. Already on the pool, in my own time, I've got at least, in the last month, at least 20 to 25 hours.
Okay, here's where we stand on the pool. The fact that it needs repair is not a surprise, should not be a surprise to any of us. When the repairs take place need to be during the dry season, which is basically November through March. Well, we're just coming out of that. This is what I propose. I have a motion. I'm going to give it to the board to vote on. I think we should proceed to get a contract so that when the next inspector comes over, who's retiring, and the new guy with the clipboard is taking his place, then I can go to the county in hand and say, we have a contract, we know what needs to be done, we have the repairs planned, please don't shut us down for the summer. That's what I see right now as a practical way to move forward, okay? So based on that, I make a motion on behalf of the Amenities Committee that we proceed to obtain a contract, a quote and contract to repair the pool, bring that figure to the board as soon as possible.
I'd like to make a comment.
Well, I need a second. Thank you.
The comment I'd like to make is anybody here that would like to work with me on getting these numbers and meeting with contractors and going over all of this, just get in touch with me. And we'll sit down and decide how we're gonna work it out. Be happy to have anybody who wants to help out.
This is not voting on the number Mark gave us. This is so that the committee can get a solid quote and contract to move forward.
Hopefully multiple quotes. Is there any questions from the board members? Yes.
A quote is one thing, a contract is another. I'd prefer to vote on a quote.
For authorization to bring quotes to the
Yeah,
board.
quotes, not a contract.
I'll amend that.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is for the amenities sub-pool committee to obtain quotes for the resurfacing of the pool.
Repair the pool.
Repair and resurface the pool.
Second.
Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Let me ask you, what ballpark, how much money are you talking about?
What was that?
Ballpark, how much money are you talking about?
Well, the price I got today was $107,000.
But that's only part of it, it's not ladders and stuff like that.
No, that includes the ladders, that includes the tile, that includes resurfacing the pool. That's a soup to nuts job, with the exception of the pump room. There's some piping in the pump room, that building at the end of the pool there.
Yeah.
That has to be fixed while the pool is empty. I can't see that being more than another $5,000 total possible.
So you're talking about 112,000.
The 75,000 was to fill the deep end.
No, I know.
Okay, second part of the pool report had to do with requests from residents on previous meetings about heating. We did have a subcommittee look at that. There are 3 different ways you can heat a pool. Around here, this size, that makes a big difference. We're a junior Olympic. That is electric, natural gas, and you pump the water into the ground and pump it back out. We're still looking at 100,000 plus to heat it, but on top of that, there is a pool down 27 that has installed a natural gas heating pump to their system. It is 50,000 gallons, and that pool costs $2,000 a month to heat in the winter. Our pool is 150,000 gallons. So we can't just look at the cost of putting in the heating system. You have to look at the cost of running the heat system. And the committee is recommending that we don't do it.
Yes, Pam, ladies first.
I would like to
our temperature was 80 degrees. And people coming from the north, that's really good for them. But by the time July rolls around, it's up in the 90s.
Right.
Water is 90. I don't see a need for it.
Okay. Yeah. That's what the committee, John, did you have a?
I guess it was about 3 years ago, and I spoke with her about this. I had researched 2 different companies that were going to utilize solar heat exchangers to heat that pool. And the cost for those, for a pool that size at that point in time, was around $27,000. I'm just curious as to why this time around there was no inquiries into solar heat exchangers for that, instead of just natural gas and electric and all the rest of that. I don't know why that didn't happen this time.
The committee have any statement?
I was not part of that subcommittee, but I did bring that up to them. They could not find anybody to do it, but then again, you ran into monthly cost, and it would require extra pumps. So we got more into operating cost more than installation cost. But I don't know that it was looked at specifically. I do know that the others were.
Julie, did you have a question?
Well, I was just gonna say, the pool at the other, my last community where I live, we found it's not a chemical, it's very safe. It's like an invisible blanket. You put it in, it's a liquid form. You put it in the pool, you cannot even see it. Nobody, it's been checked and all that with MSDS and all that. But anyway, it just spreads out over the surface of the pool like a blanket.
It sounds like you should be on the pool committee.
Well, but yeah, it's something that you could look into.
I welcome you to talk to Mr. Klutner about that. Any option is a viable one to look at. Yeah, you're not done yet.
Okay, that brings me up to the typical part of my report to the board, which is the ask, when we ask for money. This is the amenities budget for 2022. On the right-hand column, you see what has been dispersed. This is through the end of February. We had a carry forward negative of $14,598. Loan surfacing, agronomics. If you add this section and this section, you get this, okay? So that's what I'm requesting now, and that is for agronomics, maintenance and repairs, pool maintenance, property liability insurance. I believe that's paid quarterly. I'm not sure about that. And utilities. Mostly utilities. So that 29,822.90 is the ask. Yeah, it's in the budget. This is nothing that's not budgeted. It's part of what we approved in 2021 for 2022. Nothing's new, nothing's out of line. We're just bringing it, saying that we'd like, yet again, approval to spend money we said we were going to spend.
Do we have a motion for that? Mr. Cramp has made such a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. McCullough, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next slide, please. This is where I update the board on some of the information that I provide to the amenities group. As you can see, rounds have gone up year to date. We go back to 2019, 2022. So far, this is through February as well. It's 10,234 in 21. You can see it was 8,800, 94 in 2020, and 9,200 in 2019. So rounds of golf are up. A lot of people playing the golf course. Next slide, please. A conditioning report that the board asked last year, 16 greens are in good shape, 2 greens are lagging behind but progressing. The greens are fertilized weekly, the greens will have herbicides applied on a weekly basis, greens are top dressed every 3 to 5 weeks, greens are treated with a nematicide every 2 weeks, and the greens will be aerified for the first of 4 times on May 10th. The golf course will be closed that day. Tees. All tee stations are fertilized and herbicided approximately every 2 weeks. Green surrounds and approaches. Fertilizing is the next priority. Herbicide will be done every 2 weeks. We did fertilize the surrounds today. Next, any questions on that slide? Next slide, please. Fairway fertilizer was completed last week, right before it rained, thank goodness, so that helped. Herbiciding will be targeting the Poan and the other non-golf course grasses once it gets a little bit more warm in the morning time. Rust, we expect to be able to maintain them to golf course standards until the growth of the grass outpaces our resources. Bunkers, edging, weed control, and increase in sand pro activity has started. Any questions there? Next one, please. And did you know that we maintain approximately 140 acres inside the Cypresswood community? Of that, 80 acres is golf course playable areas. We still have no golf course mechanic. Thank goodness Roy, our superintendent, has some of that skill. We currently have a golf course maintenance staff of 8, including a certified golf course superintendent. Any questions on that? Good. Next slide. New business. You have new business, okay?
A resident approached me about having an RV storage area inside Cypresswood. This could involve a lot: cost, purchase, security, etc. So before the amenities committee makes an effort to look into this, I would like a show of hands of presidents just to find out if any of you are in favor of having an RV boat storage area within our compound. And if you are, if we have enough, then we will look at pursuing the cost of what that might entail. Remember, everybody on the committee is a volunteer. Okay, hands up, yes.
So I want to make a comment.
Okay. I just need to get an idea, because if nobody's interested, then I'm not going to ask people to work on it.
Well, I don't know where we'd put it. I don't know where there's any space.
Well, that's part of the challenge, is trying to find a parcel that we have to purchase from somebody to put it on.
Purchase the land.
Okay.
You have to be a repurpose of a different location.
Yeah, within the community itself as it exists now, I can't think of, and I know it pretty well, I can't think of a parcel where we could set it up.
There's been some suggestions in some certain areas by the residents who have brought this up, so we have to explore that option. They may not even be available.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Any place that you put it that's in the purview of the community association, that would be in a violation of the lease agreement with Wood.
Well, again, there's a lot to it. That's why he says a lot.
I've spoken with John about a storage facility.
Right.
He says, no way, Jose.
Okay, well, then that may answer the question, but again, she's bringing something that was brought to her for transparency purposes. Yes, Mr. Hassan?
How many acres are there other than golf course that are part of the amenities that go with the golf course?
Approximately 60.
So if we were to purchase the golf course and the amenities, we would have some land in to do this kind of project?
Well,
Yes, I mean, I guess theoretically. The big decision is whose house do you put it behind? That would be a nice political conversation.
There's paving or leveling, there's grading, there's fence.
It's a lot.
There's lights,
It's a lot.
Insurance.
And there are at least 3 establishments and within 5 miles of here that provide the service. But it's up to the board. This is, somebody brought that to the amenities committee. You need to decide whether you want them to pursue it or not. So she's asking for a show of hands, those of you who want her to pursue it. the committee to pursue it. So if you want them to pursue it, raise your hand, please. There you go.
We will not pursue it.
Okay. Any other new business? Mr. Yaz, do you have something that came in late? Do you want to bring that up to the board so that?
If you'd like to mention it, that's fine, since you have the mic.
Oh, there you go.
So you came from your HOA, correct? You came from our HOA, correct?
So we had a solicitor in our neighborhood over the weekend soliciting power washing services, and I'm fairly certain that that's prohibited in our community, correct? Solicitation is prohibited. And I believe the last time that there was a solicitor, the attorney had sent that person a letter indicating that they're no longer able to conduct business in the community. Is that correct?
Roofing contractor, yes.
That is correct.
Okay, so I mean, I would assume that we would probably handle this particular situation under the same circumstances, so.
And what was the name of the company again?
I sent it to you in that email yesterday. I think it was like Ace's Pressure Washing. It was based out of Dundee, so I have no details around it, but several neighbors brought it to my attention. I had a mailing on my door about it. I know others did as well, so I don't know if he visited other communities or if he was just back in Oak Grove.
Did he have an appointment with one of your residents at all?
I have no idea, but he certainly put his flyers around, multiple doors, so.
So, Mr. Attorney, in the past when we did that, did we notice them first and then violated them the second time, or did we just blanket just tell them to stay out? Do you recall?
I think the last time this happened.
It was a roofer.
Yeah, and the individual kind of fibbed to the traffic control center about why he was there. And I think that's why we kind of came down on him pretty hard.
So do we?
He couldn't come in Cypresswood and solicit business for a year, 2 years or something.
Something like that, right? So how would you suggest that we notify this company of their wrongdoing?
I don't hear any evidence he fibbed to the traffic control center like the other guy did. So this could just be, okay. Business people try to draw up business sometimes. And when they do one job someplace, they kind of knock on doors elsewhere. We just need to tell them to stop.
Okay. And would that letter come from?
Yeah, it can come from me.
Okay.
That's fine. Just
All right, so I'll send you the details. And then that'll be the first note to that. And Mr. Reese, did you hear anything from staff about any complaints or anything?
I have not heard anything about it.
Okay.
Your email was the first I heard.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, so we'll send them a letter to cease and desist, essentially, right? Yeah.
Stop it.
Stop. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Mr. Hassan.
I wanted to quickly thank the president for the reversal on the vote that we had 3 months ago, where it was implied by, about 3 months ago, we had a meeting where it was implied by road experts and people with a lot of experience that the Oak Grove community had to pay for 565 feet, 20 feet wide of the boulevard. And that was reversed tonight. I was the only other voter in favor of the motion to have the entire boulevard paved by the CCA, which was what we find out now was the original plan. And I think it was good of us to make the change and let Oak Grove know that they won't have to pay for, if you multiply it out 20 times 565 feet. That I wanted to thank my fellow presidents for. Also, I wanted to alert everybody to something that's happening now in the Meadows organization or in our complex, and that is that along Sandestin Drive, the Winter Haven sewage people are working and finding, they're trying to find the manhole covers. Believe it or not, they're 2 feet down below the level that they're supposed to be at. I don't think we had that kind of erosion take place, that 2 feet covered the manhole covers, but I had one in the middle of my yard, right smack in the middle of my front yard, 2 feet down, and they had to make a hole about 5 feet diameter and 3 feet deep in order to uncover it, because they couldn't find it to begin with. 4 houses down from me, where one of my fellow presidents used to live, so he knows what I'm talking about. 4 houses down from me, a driveway had to be busted up in the middle of the concrete work. A 3-foot by 4-foot hole had to be cut through the driveway to get down to the manhole cover. Another one 24 inches below the surface that it should have been at. I don't know how these things happen and why now they're discovering that the manhole covers are way below where they should be, but that is what happened, and it might be in your community next where the manhole covers will have to be raised to a level where they can be used. Certainly a manhole cover 2 feet below a concrete driveway is not very useful for the people doing the work. I also want to say that our community contributes $50,000 to the CCA, and we're happy to do it, but we are trying very hard to control the costs that take place frequently each year, as a matter of fact, since we took the lease. So to be frugal is important. We have some people actually who have left the community because of the cost of the dues. And hopefully we'll be able to control that cost as time goes on. One other thing. Well, that was all I wanted right now. I can't think of the other.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business before we go, Mr. Graham?
I move for an adjournment.
Okay, do we have a second for that? We are now adjourned. Thank you, everybody. See you in 2 months.